Hello and welcome to the 13th video in this series making a space shooter app using HTML and JavaScript. So in this video what we're going to do then is we're going to get the player to fade, so become opaque when it gets hit by an enemy. First thing I want to do is go into player.js and add in a new property called hit. I'll put this also in the reset, and this will be set to true whenever we've been hit by an enemy. I'm going to go into enemy.js and now add in a new function to check whether we've collided with a player or the enemy has collided with a player. So here we have then a function that just says if our containing box intersects the player's containing box, so again our rudimentary collision detection, check if the player's been hit or not already. If it hasn't, then set its status to hit and we'll log to the console that we have a collision. What we'll do then inside the switch is just do the check player collision function here as well. I want to test that quickly then in the browser to make sure everything's working okay. I'm going to go to defs.js and turn the bullet fire rate right down so I don't shoot everything. I'll put it at 10 seconds. And let's go into the browser. Let's start our game then and try and get up the screen and collide with an enemy. And we can see the collision with player appeared in the console on the right hand side, so everything seems to be working okay. So to deal with the actual fading and flashing, the way we're going to do that is when the player gets hit, is then going to stay opaque and unhittable for a finite defined amount of time. So we need to record when the hit occurred. We'll call that last hit, we'll set that to 0 and also set it in the reset function to 0. And now in defs.js I'm going to set a player flash opacity, which will be used to set the CSS opacity at 0.5 when the player is hit, so it looks like the player is fading, it's going to become slightly transparent. And now comes the main part inside the update or inside an update function of the player. We don't have one yet, but now we're going to update our player. Remember, the moving is done just independently of the update, but here we get updated, the enemy gets updated, etc., and detects the collision with the player. We'll now have a look at the state of the player and put the logic in here to be able to make our player fade. So as with all other items on the game board, we're going to have an update with delta time. And now we'll ask some logic. We'll say if we're not flashing as a current state and we've been hit, then that's our first hit on the player and we need to now set the CSS to make us opaque. So if we've been hit and our state isn't hit flashing, switch us to hit flashing state, which means when we've got future hits, so we're updating so quickly, the same sprite we've hit will be detected to have hit us again, but the state will be hit flashing, so this if will no longer be true. We'll set the time we were last hit to 0 because we haven't had any increment in time, and what we'll also do is we'll reduce our lives by 1. We'll set our lives on the game board and we'll log also to the console that we've been hit. And now what I want to do is make us go opaque. So if we are not at 0 lives left, which means effectively the game over, and there then we have when we get hit, we'll have our opacity set to 0.5. The thing that remains to do in update now is set us back when we finished being transparent for a period of time. To do that then, we'll switch on our state. And in the case that we are flashing, so we've been hit, we'll increment our delta time. And for now, we'll just say if this dot last hit is greater than 2 seconds. We'll be replacing this later with some constants because we're going to make it actually flash now. We just go a bit transparent. So if we've exceeded 2 seconds where we're in this hit flashing state, then we'll set the last hit to 0, our state back to OK, hit is equal to false so we can be hit again, and the last thing remaining then is to set our CSS opacity to 1.0 rather than 0.5, and we'll be solid again. And that should be all we need to do to go transparent when we get hit by an enemy. So I'll go to the browser. One thing I do need to do, of course, is add some logic into main.js to actually update the status of the player. I'm going to take the updating of the bullets, however, and I'm going to take that and drop that in this else here. And then after this, I'm going to update the game manager.player with delta time, so we should be able to see the fading. The other thing I want to do also inside here is clean this up a little bit just to detect a game over as well. So I'm going to say that if game manager.player.lives is less than equal to 0, then our game is effectively over. So I'll log game over as well and show the game over. Otherwise, the phase of the game manager then we shall set our tick going inside here. And I'll put these two updates before that here. Okay, so just a quick recap on the logic. Then we come in, we update the enemies, then we check whether we've got game over because the enemies have all been killed or finished. Otherwise, we'll go and update the bullets in the player. Then if the player's died, then we'll show game over. Otherwise, if we're still playing, then we'll set the timeout and go through the whole update process again. I'm going to go into the browser, just refresh and see if I can fade whilst being hit by the enemy. And you can see indeed it does fade, and I've now got 2 lives left on the top right. Let's get hit again. And now you can see I've got 1 life left and now 0 with the last one hitting me. I came back to life and I got the game over. Good, so that looks good then. We're able to be hit by the enemies and fade for a period and have a little bit of a period of invincibility before we get back to life again and are able to be hit by the enemies. So thanks very much for watching that video. Comments, questions welcome as always, and look forward to seeing you in the next one.